This video is going to go over pretty much all the teams that I use for Arena. Ever since YSenya came out, I've pretty much only been doing quick battles, autos, or cleaves outside of rush hour. And even the manuals only take like 2 to 3 minutes now, which is great. But hopefully this helps anybody who's struggling in the new Arena. I will also mention that pretty much all of my cleaves came from Envy, whose channel I'll link in the description. He has a lot more cleaves up that I don't use, but if you want to see more cleave comps, you can check him out. He was ranked 3 last season, and he's also going to be top 3 this season as well. So I'll show the stats for the teams, as well as any sort of variations of the teams that I use sometimes. And then after I show off each team, or the general core of each team, I'll show the attacks that I do with them. So first up is this team. This is the main team that I use, with a couple of variations. The main core, though, is Flan, Senya, and Mort. These 3 I use pretty much always, and then Hand Guy is just a really good generalist support. He's a second cleanse, because I also use this into Politis, so Smolia won't instantly hit 100% fighting spirit, so he's a secondary cleanse, also gives you immunity to protect against Crown Harseti, and Mort S3. So in general, I use Hand Guy here. Into some defenses that also have Senya on them, I swap out Hand Guy for Elvira. And then there are a couple of people still on the really old defense, with pretty much no damage except for Flan. For that, I just use Solitaria in that flex spot, and that will pretty much cover everything. And we can take a look at their stats. First up is Flan. For Flan, I have her on a slow destruction pen set with Bloodstone. I think you can probably get away fine just using her on her personal artifact, whatever you use for RTA or Guild War, however you have her built, probably works fine. I just like Bloodstone because it's extra safe and I'm not really using it. And then for her stats, it's just full attack and crit damage. You could give her a little bit of speed however you prefer, and I have a little bit of bulk on her too. Her gear isn't perfect, which is why I have so much leftover crit chance and effectiveness, but it gets the job done. Next up was Mort. So Mort, my gear on him is a little bit scuffed, honestly. I am both too lazy and also don't really have the pieces to regear him properly. If I could regear him, this would be an HP main boot, and these pieces all have a ton of speed on them, which I don't really care about. Oh yeah, the sword, the helm, and the ring have way too much speed on them, so I would much prefer him to be like 28, 29k HP with much less speed, but this still works fine for me, so I haven't really bothered to change it. I like Adamant Shield a lot because ML Hwa-Young S3 extincts, and also just the general protection that this provides has been pretty useful for me. Most of the quick battle teams, your main focus is not dying. For his EE, I just have his S3 damage EE. And yeah, it's pretty much just try to get as much HP on him as you can while still maintaining decent crit stats. The speed shouldn't matter that much. Next up was Senya. So here is Senya. I have her on protection immunity. The immunity is not really necessary because Harseti is going to strip you more often than not. You just kind of give her a bunch of HP. I should probably drop more HP or drop more defense for HP, but this is just whatever gear and it works fine. I have her on Touch of Rekos. You could use her personal artifact if you have that, which I do. I'm just using it somewhere else, so I'm using Rekos here. And yeah, not much to say about her. It's just a bunch of HP. Next up is we can look at the flex units. So first up was Hand Guy. This is just your standard Hand Guy build. I have him on Warhorn. You could also use Sweet Miracle or Durandal or whatever. Just have him with a good amount of bulk because he takes a decent amount of aggro in the fight sometimes, being my highest HP unit, where S3 will hit him. And then if there is like a Hwa-Young on the defense, she'll also hit him, so a lot of bulk is really good. You could make him slower. I just have him on his usual fast build, just because sometimes it's a really fast Harseti, and it's nice to get the cleanse off immediately. And then, yeah, my extra stats are into effectiveness. Doesn't really matter, it's just nice to have, in my opinion. I don't know where this FRS is coming from, I should remove that one day. Next up is Elvira. This is my Elvira. I need to regear her. I would much prefer her to be a lot slower than this, so she cycles off her immortality faster, or slower. Aside from that, you just kind of give her as much FRES as possible. I'm using this just for the FRES. You want a bunch of FRES just so that you don't get stripped by as many Harsetis as usual. I don't think there's that many psychos running 300F Harseti anymore, but my Elvira is safe against like pretty much any Harseti up to 200, so I would like to regear eventually though, and you could consider giving her immunity set, just in case Sport goes before her, then she'll get feared. It doesn't matter if you have a cleanser for her, like YSenya, but sometimes I use her without YSenya, so I'm probably going to try to get immunity on her for when I use her more often. And then the last flex unit was Solitaria, where her stats don't really matter. It's a Solitaria. I have her on Fairy Tail for Guild War, but it's just give her some bulk, some effectiveness, and then the rest of it will kind of just work itself out. You can see it's pretty much just random spare gear. I almost forgot because I'm missing one of the units needed, but there's another version of this team still using Senya and Mort, but instead of Handguy and Flan, we're going to use 2 Light Knights, LRK, and the last one is Emily, who I don't own. This team can pretty much quick battle any Harseti defense or auto it from what I've heard. I haven't used it myself because I don't own Emily, but if you do have this, you should probably try this out into any Harseti defense and see how it goes. This team I only really use for quick battles, so I'll show off all the quick battles that I do, and with varying levels of consistency, and I'll mention how consistent it is. Starting off with the Belly and Hua Young version of the Harseti's as Paladus defense, this one's the most consistent. Bellion just doesn't do enough damage on her S3, so there's not really any way for you to die. So you can just quick battle this every single time and it'll be fine. I don't think I've ever lost on this when quick battling. I almost lost when manualing once, so it might be better for me to just do it on auto, to be honest. And then there's the Hwoyoung Yufine Death. This one's also really consistent. I haven't lost to it yet. I'm pretty sure you just blow Yufine up, and even if she gets to use her S3, you're pretty tanky, plus Harseti reduces her speed, so she doesn't really benefit from her trauma, and you can just one-shot her anyways. There's the very common version of this defense with Mort instead of Bellion. This one's a little bit risky because Mort S3 has pen onto your highest HP unit. If that combined with Hwoyoung S2 and Hwoyoung S3 all hit the same unit, then that unit's probably dead, but generally you should still be able to clear anyways. The Emily variant can be pretty inconsistent because some of them are really high damage, plus her pen res and indomitable buff can be really annoying to deal with as well. The BBK version of this team is definitely the most inconsistent of them. I still quick battle it pretty consistently, but if you're worried about your streak, I would just cleave it. It's much safer with one of the teams that I show later. The problem with this team is BBK's damage just skyrockets if she procs Gab, especially if she goes after Hwoyoung S2 and S3. And then there's 2 variants of this defense that swap out ML Paladus for limited Flan plus BBK. Both of these, we just use Elvira instead of Handguy, because Paladus won't be reducing our Flan or our Senya resources, so we can just go ahead and focus on removing their Senya's Fighting Spirit instead. The Flan one is really consistent, I haven't lost yet, but the BBK one gets a little bit dicey sometimes, so for this one you might want to be a little bit more careful if you're worried about your win streak. There's also people running this ancient defense from before YSenya came out. Ruel, Harseti, Emily, Asflan. This one just puts Solitaria in our flex slot and quick battle it and it's fine. This team doesn't do any damage, so they can't really kill you. So this is a manual for the Hwoyoung version of this defense. No matter who that flex slot is, Mort, Emily, Bellion, you're going to kind of play the fight the same way. Once you get into the fight though, the most important thing is to check the turn order, because the way the turn order plays out is going to impact how you play. So like here, Hwoyoung goes first, and it doesn't hit our Handguy, which means we don't have to worry about Hwoyoung S2, S3 hitting our high HP target and then also having Mort S3 pen them. And I checked the turn order there, and Paladus is ahead of Handguy, so I'm going to avoid using any CR pushes for now, because I want Paladus to strip and then have my Handguy use S3. There's going to be some situations, though, where Mort gets to go before Handguy. If you're not on Sweet Miracle, that will end up with your Handguy and your Smolya both feared. Mort is immune to fear, and Flan is going to dodge it, so those won't be any issues. At least your DPS dealers will be up. And Handguy will only be feared for 1 turn at most because of the debuff reduction on his S3. Here though, we get the immunity buff up and we're able to tank it fine. So in this situation where I still kill Hwoyoung first, but if you had a turn order at the start where Hwoyoung went immediately and she doesn't hit your highest HP target, and then something happens where it's like Flan is able to go and reveal Paladus and all of your units move before Paladus, you could just snipe off Paladus instead so you don't have reduced focus and fighting spirit gain. I'll just speed up the fight for now though, and you can just see the rest for how it goes, because you can just auto it after you kill off Hwoyoung most of the time. This is another one of my quick battle teams. It's really ML5 heavy though. I think Emily can replace Benya, but if you can't build this team, then you can try using the more Asflon, Senya, Elvira team that I showed earlier to hit the teams that I usually hit with this one. Elvira you saw earlier, but this is the same thing. It's just a bunch of F-res. This also gives F-res. Ideally slower, so she cycles her immortality off slower, and also ideally immunity set just in case, because we have YSenya in this team to cleanse, so it's not as necessary, but mine is pretty bulky and some wards are really low damage, so if Elvira gets feared it could get annoying. So I would like immunity set on her, and I'm probably going to re-gear her sometime since we have unequip. Next up is Dilibet and Young. Dilibet, standard Dilibet stuff. Yeah, it's just a bruiser Dilibet. Def scaling bruiser. Yep. Not much to say about her. Emil Bologna, same thing. I just have her on Destruction Pen. Her gear could probably be improved a bit, but I'll deal with that later because she's not used that much anyways. Then lastly is YSenya. I have my YSenya on Holy Sack because she takes a lot of aggro, so sometimes she ends up dying, and the Holy Sack, having her come back is really nice. If you don't have this, Adamant Shield is the next best in slot, because it's just a good damage reduction without making her take more damage like Arias does. So the general idea behind this team is Elvira shuts off Senya's Fighting Spirit, and also takes all the aggro from Senya and more S1. Benya gets a pretty free cleanse from Elvira taking so much damage, and she also draws the aggro from Harseti as well as Emmapoldus. Dilibet is our cleanser, and then LCB is just a nice, consistent bruiser DPS for us to kill everybody with. And also notice that in these runs, Elvira dies. That's very common. You can check the replays even if she dies. It doesn't really affect the fight because it's near the end. There's also the versions that use ML Hwayoung instead of ML Paulus. These ones generally work fine. It's just a bit more inconsistent because ML Hwayoung's damage can get really high depending on who her S2 hits. Now we can take a look at my cleave teams based around Frida. There's a bunch of them, so we can take a look at Frida, then my two openers, and then the DPS that I use. So starting off with Frida, the most important thing is her speed. You want enough speed to hit 100% CR after your opener soul burns. So if I'm using like Emma Luna or Knockwall into Emma Paulus, I want to make sure I can hit 100% after they soul burn so that Emma Paulus doesn't cut in and S3 or something. So you're going to want at least 85% of your opener speed to account for stuff like speed RNG. The rest of her stats could probably be into HP and defense. I don't remember what I had this FRES for. It was useful at some point, I think, but it's been a while and none of my fights have ever really used this FRES, so I should probably re-gear her eventually, but I'm kind of lazy. Most important thing is her speed though. The rest can be whatever. For artifact, most commonly you'll see her personal artifact or bird's eye view. I'm using this one for the CR push. It does require plus 30 for consistency. This just makes it so that even into Harseti, we saw the Briarwitch and BBK team before I came in. This makes it so that Briarwitch would always get pushed ahead of BBK, so BBK would hit after the damage has been dealt and also potentially into Death Break. Makes the team a lot more consistent. So now, Zeo. Standard Zeo stuff, fast, 50% crit chance, rest the stats into attack and crit damage, with Tagahells. Emma Luna is pretty similar. Tagahells, really fast. The immunity is not mandatory, you can run without it. If you don't have immunity though, you might want to be a bit more careful into ML Paulus. The immunity is nice into her specifically because even if I get outsped, I don't really care because the skill nullifier will block the strip and then the immunity will block the pushback. So pretty much I can always just, I'll get outsped, I'll just soul burn S3, Frida pushes up and everything will be fine anyways. Now for my DPS options, starting off with Briarwitch and BBK, I'd say your builds for these two might look a little bit different if you're not using Senya's artifact, because Senya's artifact guarantees me turn order, but if you're not, then sometimes BBK goes first and then Briarwitch, and you want to make sure that you have enough damage in that case to kill even if that happens. Starting off with Briarwitch, you can see my speed is really high, that's because my BBK is also really fast. Like I said, if you don't have Senya artifact, you might want to make both of them slower with higher damage. This effectiveness was just so I could maybe use her into some Bellion defenses that might have some FRES on them, but I might remove this and just do damage at some point. artifact, I'm using Renewed Will because I was relying on the CR push before I regeared my BBK because 80% was really annoying to deal with. You could also just give her any sort of damage artifact and it would work fine. And then there's BBK. For EE, I'm using the Immortality EE. This is specifically for matchups into BBK and Senya, just because you have to match their stall outs. I'm using Symbol of Unity on mine because it gets really annoying sometimes when you're fighting Shepherd BBK and they just dodge everything and you can't really kill them. So this just guarantees that I can kill them, and the damage boost is nice as usual. Rest of the stats though, it's just I have her fast to prevent myself from getting cheesed by fast Arcetes, and then attack and crit damage. So then the second team that I use a lot is CDom plus Mudwig. CDom isn't... So I got this team from Envy, and he doesn't really use CDom anymore. I think he uses Roana now. I'm not sure. You'd have to go check. But I still like using CDom. Reminds me of good days. Starting off with Mudwig, I have him pretty slow, just because I generally use him with Frida, so Frida will push him up. Only 88 crit chance is necessary. Well, I guess with my imprint level, technically 87.4 would work, because CDom gives 12.6 crit chance, so where'd your sword go? So speed and torrent, you could also go destruction with Tagahells. Pretty standard Mudwig stuff. You just want to load him up on damage to punch through some of the tankier teams. And then there is CDom, who is missing a sword. She's missing a pen sword, so let us get that back. Pen sword, pen sword. It's probably very high attack. It's probably this one. Okay, I don't know why that was off, but this is my CDom. You just want 50% crit chance. With, you don't need this much speed, I think. You could probably go lower. I just gave her pretty much gear that I wasn't really using. So she ended up on speed set because I wasn't willing to use the Destro pieces, and I don't have spare speed attack boots or pen boots. But it's just attack and crit damage with some crit chance. She's pretty much cleanup for stuff like Holy Sack Benya, or just to kill off Benya for some teams. And the crit chance imprint is useful for giving Mudwig some extra stats. With Tagahells, of course. And for EE, I'm using the 5% CR push now. I think in all of the clips I was using the S2 CR push on crit before. But I was using this one in all the clips, I think, but I switched to this one. I don't think it really matters that much what you're using. So then that's it for my Zeo teams. When I'm cleaving with Moona, sometimes there are some defenses that I race. And then in the case of racing, I use Bildred, as well as either Silk or Watcher Shuri, usually Silk. So looking at Bildred, I have him pretty slow. It's just Torrent Destruction with the S2 damage EE and Windrider. Symbol is also what I used to use on him, but since my symbol's on my BBK now, I just gave him Windrider. You just want him full damage, pretty much. His speed can be that low because it's S2 CR push passive, combined with Sash Athanes from Silk or Shuri, will push him up after you kill a unit. Silk and Shuri both have pretty much the same build. You want enough speed to hit 100% CR after Frida uses S3, as well as the rest of the stats just going into damage. Silk has a higher speed imprint, but all of her damage to get the first kill to push Vildred up would come from the dual attack on her S2, so I only really use her if there's a squishy unit I can snipe out. Her E doesn't really matter. You just want the 10 speed from it. And then for Watcher Shuri, you use him into anything where the first unit or the best target to kill is a bit bulkier. I think the Shuri does like 29k damage or something. So nothing too tanky, but stuff that you can reliably kill that is a bit tanky for Silk S2 and Vildred S1 to punch through is a good time to use Shuri. Just keep in mind he is a little bit less of speed imprint. His E also doesn't really matter. The skill note is the only really useful one, but you're not really going to use it as much as you're just going to use the 10 speed. I use this team into a ton of defenses. Let's look at the most common one probably, which is this Hoyum BBK defense that's been popping up a lot. You just Soul Burn Zio into Huayang, and like I mentioned, my Senya artifact makes my tuning very consistent, so it's a bit easier for me, but this is definitely doable even without it. For me, Senya artifact is going to push Briar Witch up. We're going to Soul Burn her S3, it's going to proc both BBK Immortalities, and we're going to clean up. If you don't have that, then sometimes it happens where BBK goes and then Briar Witch. You just want to make sure you have enough damage to kill off both Harsetti and Paladus after BBK and Briar Witch use their S3s. In that case, you also might want to use your Zio S3 into Harsetti or something, just to make sure you have a more guaranteed kill. And then you'd be stuck 1v1 against Huayang potentially, which you should win most of the time. So this is another defense. This is YSenya, Mort, BBK. This is just showing the immortalities that Briar Witch and BBK both have. So you can see we proc BBK there, and she still has her extra immortality because she got the barrier to prevent the extra damage. So we kill Mort and Harsetti. We still have Senya, and the Senya is both tanky, plus my BBK damage is lower because I made her faster. So BBK goes, kills my Zio and Frida, but we have double immortal. So here at this point, our BBK has the high speed, and even though she's lost her second immortality, even if, let's just say, their BBK went before my Briseria there, Briseria is lower HP, so she would take the aggro anyways. And really for me, I use this team into pretty much any defense without Bellion or Emily. You can see a bunch of the stuff that I use it into right now. But of course, having Briseria always go before BBK is a pretty big luxury, so your results may vary. Now for a very common defense, Harsetti, Paladus, Huayang, Senya. So for this defense I use my Mudwig team, and there's a couple of things that can happen due to RNG. First off, you always Zio S3 into Huayang just so she does an S2. Now due to Harsetti S2, sometimes Mudwig goes first, sometimes Frida. If Frida goes first, it's easy, you just S3. If Mudwig goes first, Soul Burn S1 into Senya to get your attack buff. And then S2 into Huayang. Just using S1 to Huayang is risky because she can counter. S2 is also risky because she can counter and then Sacred's up, and then you might not kill with S1. Afterwards, I use my second S1 Soul Burn into Harsetti, just in case it's a really tanky Harsetti or it's POV or something. Afterwards, now it's finally Frida's turn. We S3, we get attack buff. S3 with CDom. And we just Soul Burn into Senya. And this one's on Holy Sack, but even if she's on Holy Sack, it's fine, because she can't fully solo us. She'll kill one unit with S3, and it'll be fine after. Even if she kills Mudwig, your CDom is going to have enough damage to just kill her afterwards anyways, plus Zio, of course. Here, Zio gets hit. So now it's pretty free. We just kill her with Mudwig, and then we finish off Paladus. The Moona Cleaves aren't that complicated, and they're also pretty old at this point, so I won't say much about them. This was from a rush hour in the previous season, which is why I bought Skystones. But here, Paladus outspeeds us, but we have immunity on our Moona, so it doesn't matter. We just kind of sit there, tank it. Frida also didn't get pushed back, but even if she got pushed back, Moona Soul Burn would have pushed Frida right back to where she was before. Even with speed down, BBK is not going to cut there unless she's on Swordstorm or something. But we can just push up with S3. So we push up, Mudwig takes his turn. Also the Senya artifact giving him extra CR push, which wasn't necessary there. That is a thing. And we just soften everybody up. And then we just clean the field with our S3. This is one of the Cleave teams that I got from Envy. It's just a bomb team pretty much, based around Seaseria. So we can start with Zio. He's just your standard Zio stuff. I could opt to drop some speed for damage, but don't really feel like regearing him. And Tag of Hells, of course, for the souls. Next up, we might as well just go to Rowana. My Rowana is really high F build. High attack Rowana also works fine. I just have her on F because I just wanted to use up some of my high F pieces, honestly. I have her on Violin because I use her in Rebellion a lot, and even if I'm not using her in Rebellion, I feel like I don't need, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, I don't think I do need 4 Soul Burns, 3 is probably good enough. So I use Violin to, 1, help me strip immunity off of Flan if it's there, because no one can really hit her, we don't have any non-attacks that strip. And also for an extra layer of safety against BBK. 1 extra strip is really nice to have, just in case. And then next up is ML Elena. So ML Elena is nice, she does pretty good damage. Also her S3 has a strip which you can soul burn to ignore F-res if you really need to. As well as her S2 stopping Mort from countering, which is really, really nice. So that's what I have on her. It's just speed, full damage with... I'm using this. Symbol is better, but my symbol is in use. And lastly is our Bomb Girl. Normal Seaseria stuff, S2EE to hit bomb on all enemies. Her personal artifact. Ideally you want it maxed, but if you don't have it, it's fine. This is still 85% consistent because of 15%. And then for her stats, I have her pretty fast because a lot of times you see fast Harsetis, and sometimes you want to make sure that you can bridge to 100%, even if, like, worst case scenario, Harseti resists your pushback and resists Rowana's pushback and whatnot. So you could make her a little bit slower, though. This is just a gear I already had on her. And then aside from that, I just have a bunch of effectiveness and a bunch of attack. So this is the main team that I use the bomb team into, just as Billion, Flan, Politis, Harseti defense. Here you can see this is why I have Violin on my Rowana, just because there's some people who have immunity on their Flans. Generally, you can S3 into Bellion because she has the most HP, but if it's a really fast Harseti and you need to push her back, then S3 into Harseti to push her back, of course. Here we get our strip 15%ed. Sucks, but it is what it is. We push up. So 2 bombs got resisted, and we can't strip Flan no matter what. So there's no point in trying to bomb her. We're just going to kill everybody else, and I'm going to speed it up. You can see that no matter who Flan hits, there's no way for her to kill all of us because we have 4 DPS units. The only other team I really use this into is Bellion BBK, just because I want more chances for strip and stuns onto BBK since Bellion is blocking all souls. This team definitely does work into more though. Like it works into more BBK and more Asflon. Just note that against Mort he might be on Holy Sack, so don't overspend souls if you don't need to, so you have them to kill him after he revives if you need them. And that is it for all of my arena teams, whether you're looking to climb for a frame or just trying to make your arena life way easier. At this point I only do quick battles, autos, or cleaves. Hopefully this helps you out.